Showtime.
The broadcast is live. We are live.
We're alive.
I notice on
We are
YouTube
alive.
that there's a slight delay. So I think they give you a couple of minutes in case you have
No,
to
I
run
think
to the...
you'd probably be able to start, my dear friend.
All right. Okay, cool.
Mhm.
So, all right. It says on my phone, Stefan is live now. Well, I know that. I can see him right here. So, welcome everyone. This should be fun. Stefan and I always have fun whenever we get together, whether we're just having a conversation or whether we're painting, or just, sitting around, hanging around. And, before when I was more of a professional drinker, I'd hang out with Stefan and we would both professionally drink together. I'm working on a diet Coke right now, but I have it in my favorite cup because I do
I had that
love
when I was
oxygen.
in Toronto, you know?
It's a
I was
great
drinking
cup.
from it.
Every time I pick it up, I think of my dear friend Stefan and our lovely time in Austria. Anyhow, this is not about me today. This is about Stefan. And this is, I guess, the second kind of thing that we've done together like this. And it's really great for all of you who have showed up and who are signing in. If for some reason you missed part of this, of course, you can go back and watch it on YouTube and Facebook as well, I believe. Yeah, I think so. So I guess the best place to start is at the beginning. And I had to ask Stefan just a few minutes ago what year it was when we actually met each other. And that's because I have such a bad memory. It's sort of foggy as I get older. But it was 2005 when we met. And so we've known each other for like over, well, roughly 15 years now, isn't it? That's incredible.
Yes, it
Um,
is.
and it's been just amazing to, get to know Stefan over this time. And we've had lots of adventures together and we've done lots of painting together. And Stefan is, I would say, probably one of the most inspiring artists I've ever met in my life, in real life, because I've learned so much from him. And, as you know, if you're watching his streams or you're watching his, instructional videos, um, you'll learn so much from him. And I still do. So I think one of the things that I love about Stefan, and I'm just going to praise him a little bit, is his incredible enthusiasm for what he does. Because and when I say that, it's not always like, oh, this is really great. Like sometimes he absolutely hates what he's doing, and he gets angry, and one minute he's dancing around his easel, and the next time I'm looking at him, he's cursing at it, and you know, in words in German, which fortunately I don't understand enough of. So, but I love the enthusiasm, and the genuine desire to keep improving and keep working towards his profession, his craft, his ability to be a better artist. And I'm so thankful to have met Stefan. And anyone who knows him, I'm pretty sure they can say the same thing. Maybe not everybody, but most most people um, love this man, and I love him with all my heart. He's just a super person, a super human being, and an amazing artist. So um, I guess we met at a show that I was having in the heart of Vienna, and we sort of got into a conversation. I think we talked about this when Stefan was interviewing me too, but if
Mhm.
you haven't seen that one, we got
Go
into a
check it out.
conversation, and we had so much in common. It was sort of like we were twins separated at birth, and we just sort of saw painting in very similar ways. The language that we had around painting, we had very much in common in the way we saw our approach to painting. And so Stefan, being the generous person he is, he just said, you should come and paint at my studio. And his studio was his apartment, and it was really cool because I thought, like, I always sort of worked in a different space other than my home. It was always a studio away from home, for the most part. in my life. And so Stefan lived and breathed and still does live and breathe his art. His home is his world of painting and drawing. So it was really exciting. Went over and met some fabulous people and some other enthusiastic artists. And it was just going to Vienna and not knowing anybody. Stefan was just one of those people who opened the doors for us. I think that I just want to ask Stefan you a few questions, and Stefan's not prepared for this, so for my questions, so it's going to be kind of fun. I want to ask you this first question. What was the first time? And I just have to look at my questions to make sure I get this right. The first moment that you realized that you wanted to be an artist. Do you remember?
Wow, that's a tricky question. Because I think, like it was sometimes at a certain point in my life, it was more like, it wasn't quite of a very decisive decision, or like I made up my mind to become an artist, because I really like painting, but the idea of artists was, I wasn't thinking about these things. But I think I can bring it to the point when I moved to Vienna after I studied graphic design and painting, and then I didn't paint that much. So the question before was, when you were studying the arts, you were included in a system of the academy, and your definition is you're an art student, so you do art. But when you leave the school, you have to make your living, and you do other things that keep you from painting. And the question was at that time, and it still is, am I a painter or an artist if I don't paint? And I think that is the interesting point, because at that time I realized that, and it has become more and more, that being creative in any way, it's painting, and I have broadened that kind of approach, really is a very important thing in my life. And that means that if I don't create, if I'm busy with other things, or I have to take care of, and sometimes the life gets in the way, and you've got some tragedies or something going on in your life, and you know that there are certain times where you're not focused on your painting and you can't continue to paint. And in these times, I get really bitchy, grumpy. Really, I can't stand myself at these times. And when I'm in the studio creating, that's to me, and it has become more and more so, a natural state of being. And I think that shows that this is just I don't know, that it is such an integral part of my life. It has become an integral part of my life. Oh, it's a difficult word. And I think it was when I moved to Vienna. I think let's point it down there.
Okay. I mean, you almost really answered the next question, and that is, at what point did you realize you are an artist? Because I don't know how it is for you, but there's a point where you suddenly realize, hey, I'm an artist. Yeah.
No, it's. I think it is even more interesting, because it was interesting because you said it once, and interestingly, a teacher of mine said it once, but not to me. She said it to my mother, and at that time, I was about, I don't know, at the beginning of my 20s. And she said, and you said it too, in order to become a painter, it takes 20 years. And it was interesting. I think really at the point when I turned 40, everything changed. Before that, painting was always, it was stressful and always a struggle, and also unpredictable, and so many random things happened. Like sometimes you pulled off something great, and sometimes you pulled off something not so great. I still do that, but what happened when I turned 40 was that I felt that painting became my language. And that made all the difference in the world. That doesn't mean that I'm a brilliant painter all the day or every day. So I fuck up big time, but I don't care anymore. So because, it depends on my mood, it depends on many, many different things. But I change it. I don't care. I don't cry. So I change it. If I don't like it, I toss it. And that's something that I learned from you too.
Well, no, that's interesting because I think, when you talk about that 20 years, it takes so many years to find your craft or to find the ability that you need to render what you want to render, to know your colors, to know your values, to know all of that stuff. It just simply takes time to get that down. And I always like to think it's like, a concert pianist, for example. They have to practice their scales. They have to work really hard and every day for hours and hours. And maybe it is the 10,000 hours that we've heard in the past. I think actually it's probably more. But it's only by doing that you end up learning, and you start to realize, actually, I'm not afraid of the mistakes anymore. Because I know how to fix that. So I don't know how it is for you with your students, but I know I always tell my students the only difference between me and you is that I've made way many mistakes and I actually know how to fix them. And so that's how I can teach you, because I can teach you how to fix them. At least I can.
Right.
I hope that I can. So I think at a certain point in time that builds a certain confidence in your ability. And you can I've really seen the growth in your confidence and your ability to paint even after, the 4-year period, shall we say. It's been exponential because you've gone past that point of sort of struggling in the typical way where it's sort of, I don't know what to do. Sometimes I don't know what to do means walking away and coming back with some fresh eyes and just saying, yeah, I know what to do now. Sometimes it's that 5-minute break that is all you need. So, can we talk about some of the early influences that you had in your life? Who were the people, and I'm going to say art influences at this point. Who were the people who sort of stood out for you? You looked at them as mentors and as people who made you want to do what they're doing. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, it is interesting because I keep referring to, like the big painters. I also mentioned them on a little fake biography on my website, like Caravaggio and Velázquez and John Singer Sargent. But when I started out, it was pretty much some other people there, like more of sometimes illustrators. And interestingly, I was just talking the other day to some illustrator and caricature friends of mine here in Vienna, and we are the same age, and we had almost the same influences. For example, the illustrators in the Playboy were quite influential at that time. Not only the naked girls were interesting to me, also these illustrators, and they had one of the finest and best illustrators. So like what was the guy's name? You met him, and you said Brad Holland, for example. Yeah. I saw his illustrations in Playboy, and they were stunning. And then I saw the covers of Gottfried Helnwein, and Reginald Scarfe was another guy who did the I think the drawings for The Wall from Pink Floyd. Right. Those guys. And then there was a German painter. He was a draftsman. He's called Horst Janssen. And those people were the first influences. And interestingly, one of my first influences was the professor I finally came to study with. And that was interesting because I had a book about realistic painting. And there were so many paintings, so many painters I loved. And one of them was Johannes Grützke, the painter I studied many years after that. But I was influenced by him even back then. And I took even another one that was interesting. Maybe you remember the show we went to, Xenia Hausner at the Essel show. And her father, he's called Rudolf Hausner, and he used to be a painter of the fantastic realism here in Vienna.
Yeah.
And he was also a painter I really liked very much because of the technique and the way he used colors. And so it was interesting. Also, my kind of approach was moving from very detailed and fine painting, but it moved more towards a looser approach. But at that time, I think I really appreciated these kind of realistic and photorealistic painters at a certain point, and I did a little bit of that work close to that.
And when you chose to study, when you were serious and you wanted to pursue this, what school did you go to, Stefan?
It was first. It was interesting because I was not very good at school, and so my parents were either not caring that much, or they didn't worry also. But then on the other hand, they worried that I can't pursue certain professions. So finally, it popped up that we got to know about a profession that was called graphic design.
Okay.
And so that was something that because it is on the one hand it's creative, and on the other hand it's applied. And I think that was the thing. You can be creative, but you can also make some money. So that was a good compromise in terms of the artistic freedom you could get. And I studied graphic design, and I had fortunately also another professor who was very inspiring, and he was more of a fine artist. And so he sort of became also a mentor in terms of that. I wasn't really doing graphic design like what's it called? I don't know the English word, like typography, for example, and those things.
Yeah.
And so in the end, I was more in the department of illustration, and I still did what I wanted to do. But after that, I thought, and even during the graphic design studies, I always wanted to go to the academy and do fine arts and painting. So after that, there was a rumor that my hero, Johannes Grützke, was starting to have a class at the Nuremberg Academy of Fine Arts. And it turned out it wasn't only a rumor. Then he got the class, and I was accepted to his class. So I studied with him 6 years. And at the start of that, before that, I wanted to go to Vienna in order to study painting there because of the city. But fortunately for the fantastic realists, I was too loose, and for the abstract painters or Hundertwasser, all those guys, I was too stiff. So I felt in between, and it was perfect to go to Grützke, because he was exactly the guy I was supposed to go. And I also met a lot of colleagues who studied here in Vienna, and by seeing what they experienced, I was also very happy that I didn't study here in Vienna.
It is amazing how those first influences, those teachers that in the beginning can really take you in a certain direction. I don't think teachers realize just how much power there is in the things that they say and the directions they push you. I don't think they realize that. And I think one of the if you're fortunate enough to work with someone that you resonate with, someone who can help you along and takes an interest in you, I think that's an amazing thing. When as I know you now, I would say that you could go either way if you want to. You have the ability to be very tight and very precise, very classical, and on the other hand, you could be abstract. I mean, you can go as loose as you want to go. You have that ability, and I think that because you are, sort of in that ground, you're not categorized one way or the other. It gives you the opportunity to experiment and grow, because you can go both directions.
It's to me. I'd like to add something here, because it's not an opportunity; it's a freedom. It's a freedom of having the choice. Because right now I do a lot of portrait commissions, and so therefore sometimes it is required to become more detailed or more finer in terms of, when you paint kids, you
Mhm.
can't go there with a big brush. So
Yeah.
to me, it is a freedom. And the other thing you said about the mentors, I think it is what I realized afterwards was, because we're very much focused, or like I see in the technical stream on Wednesday, like the painting technique stream, we're very much focused on technique. But I think we learn so much about, we learn because we observe. And that was the most important thing to me, because I think, to me, my professors and also you, all the people I learned from, they set an example and became what's it called? I don't know the English word right now. They became Vorbilder is the German word, but maybe someone would write it in the comments. Sometimes my brain is a bit like someone you look up to, or like
maybe
you observe.
a mentor, like a mentor.
No, it's not a mentor. It's fuck. I'd forgotten the word, but nevertheless, so it's someone you look up to and you observe what he's doing, and because of his of the person's integrity, it becomes believable. And to me, all these influences, it's interesting. To me, I see all these influences I had as being a part of a tradition, of a painterly tradition where you're from. So I realized when I saw your work in the beginning, because you came from North America, and your whole approach to color was totally different. So you could tell throughout these years you painted in Vienna, you adapted a different palette because of what you were exposed to, and I think this happens all the time. That because we are visual people, so we learn more by observing. I think that's
we do.
The clue.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, it is a language. So painting, the arts are a language, and so painting is something that we understand on maybe an intuitive level. I mean, you can educate yourself to a certain point, but there's a lot of intuition that's involved. And so when we see things that we like, it resonates with us. That goes with people. You meet people for the first time, you get along, and other people you don't. And who's to explain that? That's just what it is. So, okay, and we are going to get into some slides. You covered a few things here. I just wanted to, I want to ask you, before we do this, I don't want to forget this. What is a typical painting day, or what is a typical day for you? And it doesn't necessarily have to mean painting, but because I know that you do a lot of different things. You do photography, you paint and you draw and so on. You teach. Sometimes you've got portraits on the go. But what's a good day for you? What's a typical good day for you?
A good day is for me. I don't get up too late, so I get up at 7 o'clock or 7:30, and then I have breakfast and do work at the computer, like answering emails and doing all the office work before noon. And I think if I don't have an appointment, like a model session or something like that, sometimes I have it at 10 o'clock or something, 10, 11 o'clock. Then if I'm on my own, I usually go to the studio at noon. And then my ideal day is not having an appointment in the evening. Because if I have an appointment at a certain point, it doesn't matter when, I have that in my head when I'm painting. So because sometimes I fuss around and write, half an hour before that meeting, I get into the flow and it works, and then it's really it's a drag. So therefore sometimes, like going to an opening at 7 o'clock, I usually, if I do something in my time off, I really prefer 8 or 9 o'clock. So then I've got more time, or just recently, there are not so many openings right now and those things. So therefore I just paint until I'm tired, and then I go back to my apartment. So that's usually my day. But also with the streaming and the online thing, I'm pretty much structured right now, so that is also interesting. So I on Sunday I prepare the next stream for Wednesday, and it's always like in 2 or 3 days, and it's interesting. It gave me an additional structure also.
Well, that was really one of my next questions, and that is, with this pandemic that's happening, how has that changed your life as an artist? I mean, this is, a fairly recent thing,
The
but
pandemic?
you've adapted to this very, very well. I'd have to
Yeah.
say, and I'm curious, how does that feel, and how has that changed your way of painting and your way of life?
Mm, well, it's really difficult to say because there was a change that wasn't connected to the pandemic actually, but it also helped me in that time, because since it was interesting, since last year I was pretty much occupied with portraits, and I wasn't advertising me as a portrait painter, but I had since last March quite a few portraits to do, and they took a while because I'm not so fast. So that was also something that I didn't work on my own paintings that much. That was one thing. And the other thing was that doing the streams was also something that changed, like I said, my whole rhythm in my weekly routine. So I had some structure. Before that, I had students at my studio every Tuesday morning and afternoon. And that was also a certain structure that I had. But that was one day. And now I've got more time at my disposal. That's also a big advantage right now.
Okay. Yeah,
and it, to me right now, the pandemic has brought me lots of positive things. The negative things were that there weren't so many live sessions. Usually I work quite a bit with models, and that was also different and difficult to do. So I didn't do these things that much.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, it has changed. Like I don't see it. It's interesting. It's connected to the pandemic, but it's actually my regular way of living, because I don't know what's happening next year. I don't know what's happening the year after that year, because it's that you move to Vienna, everything changed, and then you do this, everything changes, and then you get you take new opportunities, you change up things. That's interesting.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think at some point, maybe towards the end, we'll take some questions if people have any. I unfortunately don't have I can't see the comments on my phone. So
okay.
My problem
So
technically. Are there any questions up there we
yeah,
want to get
no
to
problem.
Right away?
So first of all, the word that I was looking, because some of them wrote idol, but I didn't mean idol. Bonchi said role model. I was looking for the word role model. They became a role model. Like that is the perfect, the right word. And no, it's just there aren't any questions. But if you've got any questions, just write them in the comments.
Yeah. And Stefan, you can look at the questions as they come, or if you want to make a note of it.
Yeah.
And it would be great to get going through your slides and see what you have to show. We'll have a little sort of a history lesson.
They were joking also about me being because you were flattering me so much, that me turning into Ferrari red.
No, not at all. I didn't see you blush. I know how to make you blush.
No, I didn't blush because I'm so full of myself.
I won't.
No,
I won't bring up the reasons. We can just say it out there. Stefan and I have slept in the same bed together. I'm just going to say it. Yeah. So one of the things that was fabulous, aside from sleeping with Stefan, was
oh my goodness,
we went to these symposiums.
You wait for the comments.
Yeah. These symposiums, we went to a few, and in Himmelberg and Weitra and so on. So we would paint together outdoors. So we were doing plein air painting outdoors. And one great thing about Austria, is that they have, I don't know anything like what they have here at all, because we would go somewhere and we would stay in a place for a week and we would cook for each other, or food would be provided to us, and also even art
Yeah.
supplies in some cases. And we hung out. Some of us, well, at one point I think there were like 6 artists, and another time there were over 20
Yeah.
artists, and there was so much to be learned this way. And it was a lot of fun, and it was just a great exposure to the way other people are working and so on. That's the reason Stefan and I slept in the same bed. I can just tell you that. Um, it wasn't because we love each other, but it isn't that kind of love. So um, there it is. But it's really funny because I feel, in many ways, Stefan is like a brother to me, or like family, and we're very close to each other. And it's really a special thing. And I think I said it in the last interview. If you can get together with another artist and who you really care about and you really love, and you learn from and you enjoy each other's company without ego, that's a very special thing. And
Yeah.
if you can find that in this world, it's a great thing. So I recommend it. If you're looking for encouragement and you're looking for, companionship in the thing that you do, it's a rare
Yeah.
thing, but it's wonderful when you find it.
Mhm.
Okay, I'm sure there are loads of comments around that, but let's get on to your
Yeah,
slides.
they're laughing their ass off.
Let's get on to your
Yeah.
slides. Let's have a look.
You're right. So
All right.
that's the first one.
So tell us about this, Stefan.
So, like I said before, it's not right at the beginning. This is because I did also what's it called? I did also an introduction of myself where I had more slides, and you can look it also up. And I did it in German, but we reduced the paintings down, and this starts at the beginning of 2000 when I was living in Vienna for 3 years. And interestingly, at that time, one of the major reasons why I also was so much interested in Vienna was because of music. And here you see the 3 composers. In the middle is Arnold Schönberg. On the left is Alban Berg, and on the right is Anton von Webern. And because of my professor, and you will see one painting of his, I was very much drawn to caricature. So every time I painted, I exaggerated the features. So also another thing in this painting was that it's acrylic on hardboard. And so at that time I was really tired of oil painting because I was too much blending, and so I switched over to acrylics in order to achieve a different painterly approach in terms of that what you lay down sticks there, and you have to be a little bit more confident in these things.
That's great. It's a great piece.
And the next one is a painting I did at the Euroculture, and the theme of the painting, there was a theme in the Euroculture that was called 1914, 2014. So it was the 100th sort of anniversary of the start of the First World War, which made such a huge impact to the world. And I got the idea of these rulers of the world. You have the emperor, the German emperor. You have Woodrow Wilson, and you have the Russian Tsar in the back, and then you've got Angela Merkel, Obama, and Putin sitting in that what's it called, sandbox.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And kind of arguing about their toys, and you've got the planet of Earth as a balloon ball, and in the back you see Verdun, like you see the battlefields of the First World War, and the whole thing is painted with 3 colors. It's painted with ultramarine blue, transparent oxide red, and white. That's how I did it.
It's amazing. Very limited palette, but very effective. It really works.
Because I didn't want to fuss around with paint in terms of that. I really like to, and you know that it's a limited palette is quite refreshing.
You know, when I'm looking at Merkel in this here, it's funny because I just wonder if she comes from the same bloodline as the current British Prime Minister. It's got this
She
kind
looks.
of the same kind of hairdo, you know. It's
Oh, you
crazy.
mean Boris?
Yeah,
Boris. Oh well,
Boris and Merkel.
it's
Yeah,
more connected.
yeah.
Yeah,
You'd have to mess her hair up a little more to make it look exactly
yeah,
like him. But yeah, they
yeah,
just have that same kind of punchy look.
yeah,
Anyhow, it's
yeah.
a fabulous image and a great concept and well rendered. Love it.
Yeah. Thank you. And
Oh, and
oh, I haven't
speaking of
switched off my
hair,
phone. My goodness. Yeah. Speaking of hair, and that was another painting I did at the Euroculture, and the theme of the Euroculture was at that time heroes, and it was very funny because someone. Another illustrator colleague came up to me afterwards, after he had seen the painting, because he didn't attend the Euroculture, and he said, "Are you serious? Is he really a hero of yours?" And actually, I think he did a lot of good things for painting, and we were talking about that before.
yeah,
I think he just made it so easy for lots of people to get into painting, and that was his big achievement, and what he did. And so the painting is called "That's the Way How Bob Ross Painted in His Pastime."
that's great. Love it. And I often tell my students, you know, like we tend to make fun of him, and it's, you know, Bob Ross puts you to sleep in the middle of the night and so on, and happy little clouds. But truly, he opened the world of painting for so many people who would have never
Yeah,
picked up a brush. And
yeah,
at least it gives those who have never tried it an opportunity to give it a try, and also to maybe appreciate how difficult it can be. So yeah, no, we have a lot to thank him for,
yeah,
especially Bob Ross's magic weight.
yeah. Right.
It's great. So
That
this
was
is
a painting. Yeah.
would this be the very beginning of a series that eventually you would pursue?
Yeah, I think the painting. I can't see the date, but I think it dates from '96, because it's even older than the paintings I'd shown you, because I wanted to get into the caricature thing. But here it is more of a narrative painting that I did at that time. And interestingly, I painted these two people separate from each other. So they didn't know that I painted a half a year on that painting. And I was pretty much influenced by Balthus. That's also the reason why I did such a strange pattern on the wall that is not really very realistic, the way I look at it. Also, interestingly, I had artificial lighting in that studio. It was a basement studio, so the skin tones look also a little bit weird. And I painted with lots of palette knife work and scumbling and glazing, and I was very much influenced by that kind of, that you achieve a surface that looks like a fresco or something like that. That you've got a coarse surface,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also the start for it. It was interesting to see that I connected to that. I think at the beginning 2012 or something like that, when I started the intimate distances, that I already done that kind of approach
Mm-hmm.
in terms of doing something narrative and doing a painting with a male and a female figure. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, it's a really complex image and very difficult to paint, and you've pulled it off. It was great.
Interestingly, those paintings always have a tendency to what happens is that the viewer always tells me a story to these things, and they fill these images with stories in terms of that they can relate to these people,
Mm-hmm.
because they're human beings. And I think that is to me the strongest point in painting human beings, because
Yeah.
we don't relate that much to a barn or a tree, but the tree can stand for a person, or like the Van Gogh chair
Mm-hmm.
is representing Van Gogh, and then he painted the Gauguin's chair.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a substitute. But I think we relate more to human beings. Like when you paint a landscape and you put a little figure in there,
Mm-hmm.
we always tend to go toward that figure.
We do. It's an automatic focal point, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It is. It is.
If you were a dog and there was another dog in the painting somewhere, or where if you're a dog
Right.
looking at a painting of a dog, then you're attracted to that too. It's just
Yeah.
interesting how we look at our own kind and where do we fit. We're
Mhm.
always looking at where we fit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is a funny and fabulous painting.
Yeah. And that was also, I have that as an example for that. I was so much influenced by Johannes Grützke, by the painter I studied with, because I did lots of self-portraits. I have loads of self-portraits at home. And it is, you can be more cruel to yourself in terms of your pictorial way or your depiction, how you paint yourself, because you're not kind of, oh, you painted me so ugly. You don't care. I don't care. And actually, these paintings are not intended to be self-portraits. It's just I use myself. And that's also what my professor did. And at that time, you could see I was very much into cigar smoking. And it's also, this is quite a huge painting. This is 1.50 meters to 2 meters.
Wow.
It's really, the heads are really big. So I've got
Wow.
these big heads. And it's painted with acrylics.
Wow.
So
it's great. I
but
love the colors. I love the textures in it, and each one is its own character. And yeah, it's really it's full of movement. It's hard for me not to. It's hard to resist, let's say, analyzing a painting. And I
mhm,
tend to analyze things on the technical level, but in this, I see triangles all over the place, which I'm a
yeah,
big fan of. And
yeah.
compositionally, this works. It's very powerful.
It's like you've got, here's a triangle, this arm is a triangle, this is a triangle.
Yeah,
So it's like check, this is a big triangle.
great big
So it is.
triangle.
This is right,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, fun.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And this is a painting by my professor.
Amazing.
And
Yeah. Can really see
he,
the influence too.
yeah, it is pretty much that he painted all these figures are himself, and he painted paintings where there were so many people in the painting, and even women, and they looked kind of strange because they looked like men, because he used himself as a portrait, as a model.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, I think it's called Men. Cole, I don't know how coleslaw. How's this cole? How's
Coleslaw.
this called?
Coleslaw is like a
Yeah,
salad. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. And the bread. And this is I don't know what is it. This is a broom. It doesn't make any sense. The whole painting doesn't make any sense in terms of the whole narrative is kind of weird. But it's also I think it's approximately 2 meters high. So
Wow.
when you think about it, the whole figure, the main figure, is huge, and the head is also huge. It's very powerfully painted. So he was really a great influence, also in terms of that he had a tendency towards caricature.
Mm-hmm. And again, very animated. It's we, of course, the temptation is always to put a narrative to these things, and it looks like he's trying to make some coleslaw, and everyone else is trying to hold him away from it. It's like,
Sort of, yeah.
please don't do this, don't do this, and he's hungry. It's fascinating image. You could write a story around it.
Yeah. So speaking of self-portraits, I did this one in terms of a future self-portrait, or I don't know how it looks underneath. And but also that was also an example of me trying to, because I had last Wednesday, I had the topic was edges. And this was just a big struggle for me, because I always had a tendency towards, because my painting was kind of okay. No, my drawing was kind of okay, and then in the end, you filled in the different planes, and you stuck with it. And painting out of the edge, for example, here, the shoulder, or here, was something that I tried in these paintings for the first time. So also here, I don't know if I can enlarge it. No, I can't. It is like that I've painting out of these shapes, and that was really something that I didn't do before that.
It's something I've been trying to learn to do better, and something that you really have inspired me this way, because I realized that I was doing this a lot as well, just painting up to the edge all the time, and the edges were fighting with the painting.
Yeah.
We don't see that
Yeah.
way, so
Yeah.
why do we paint that way?
Yeah.
Great.
Also, I think it depends also on your tools. Like for example, when you use the palette knife, it creates easily hard edges and too many of them. You can also smear the paint, but also the if you put a hard edge in, you really have to be aware of these things. So therefore, it's a tricky thing with these edges. And again, it's not about a self-portrait. Actually, it's like when you look at Rembrandt, he's not very, I think he uses himself in terms of that you take something, an idea, and you bring it across, and then you take yourself as a model.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did I did a body painting of a woman, and afterwards I asked her that she should paint me because it was a Halloween body painting. Mm-hmm. So I did. She painted, and I said to her she should paint me white and make these red eyes where you look really sick. And I had a white shirt, and then I took these photos and I used them as a reference. Me being kind of a lunatic, you know.
There's something very theatrical about this, you know. Mm-hmm. It sort of feels like the intro to, you know, the crazy doctor or something.
Right.
The man you never want to meet.
Yeah. Also,
but
the idea
so well painted.
of the shoulders, because it doesn't have the spatial dimension that the one is before the other. Because the shoulders are going into each other. It's more of a graphic solution of how to deal with the different shapes.
Yeah.
Also reducing the negative shapes. Like there's a negative there,
so
and the heads are cut off.
Like Siamese triplets.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah, that is also a fairly old painting. It's from '96, and it was at that time my studio mate. And this was a watercolor I did. At that time, I did quite a few watercolors on really good watercolor paper. It's called Arches. Arche. It's a French brand, and I stretched this paper on a stretcher. Like you wet it, and then you stretch it on the stretcher, and then I painted it on the easel. And interestingly, it stays really, really firm because it has such a strength. It's 300 grams. It's I don't know how much.
That's very thick.
Pounds.
Yeah,
it's a really thick.
We used to call it 300 pound.
No, it's half of it again.
Okay.
300 gram. It's 150.
Yeah,
I don't
150.
Know. But and you can also see from the drips that I painted it upright. So when I painted, and I painted from life. So and I think really all the time.
Very sensitive and very beautifully done. Yeah, love this.
Yeah, and all the time I did portraits of people that who came to my place, and so every time I got visitors, they had to pose for me, you know, because Vienna I became more popular because so many people in Germany thought, oh, I haven't been to Vienna for such a long time, and I can crush at Stefan's place. So that's what they did, but they had to pay in order to leave their head with me, you know.
It's great practice and a great record of these visits too. Yeah. Wonderful.
Yeah. And that is the former mayor of Bayreuth, and this was an official commission that I did in 2006. Oh, it's such a long time. Oh, that was 1 year after we met. I didn't know that was so long ago. Yeah, and that was really interesting because he was in office for 18 years. And because it's a small city, you get to know also the mayor of the city, because there was an annual art exhibition there, and he attended it, he opened it, and so he greeted all the artists. So I knew him before, and that was interesting because he lived right across the street of my mother's place, and so I went there in summer, and he borrowed the chain from the new mayor, and it was very hot, and we painted there, and I always set a timer for 20 minutes, and he was really relieved, and it was really nice. And in the background, that is the the museum that was his achievement of the city, that he founded the art museum in the city. And I'm a painter, so I'm related to the art museum, so I post him in front of it.
So you painted this from life then?
Yeah, I painted from life and photographs. Okay. So I did it. I did oil studies drawings at his place, and then the bigger painting I painted from the studies and the photographs.
Nice. Oh.
That's also one of my good friends, Markus Burucker. He's a musician, and he's not always happy, as you can see. But again, it's interesting. You see, with the stripes on the jumper, it is interesting how can you deal with these things that they don't get too pedantic. And to me, this was also a very important painting in terms of that I didn't paint the eyes. It was also the glasses were very like simplified painted. It's that brush stroke in the dark areas that do the whole trick. Also the soft edges in the hair, and these it's also something I like because of that. And it's got, because when you paint people, I think making too many hard edges costs you that they look alive, that they're being vivid. I think.
So
can I say that?
So it's just to this point. When you and I are talking about each other's work, or we're looking at other artists' work, typically we'll sort of analyze it, sort of from the craft side of it, or the how it's rendered, or how the artist had control in areas and lost it in others. But one of the things that I'd like to say about this is that no matter how it's resolved, no matter how you've rendered it and resolved it and worked with edges sharp and soft and so on, what you've captured very well and very beautifully is the mood. So I think that the feeling that you get when you look at this is something that we're familiar with. We connect with that position. We know what that feels like. We can almost sense how this person feels, maybe down, maybe angry, maybe disappointed, maybe disillusioned. All of these feelings emanate from this, and every brushstroke that happens when you're painting is an opportunity to push that energy, shall we say, forward from the work that you're doing. And you've captured that very successfully here, and because of that, it's powerful.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. La mamma, la mamma. And this is more like a painting that I don't know, I was struggling with it. She doesn't like it, but in the end, it was, to me, it was so important to do, because it's not only about the painting. It was also because of the annoying comments she did during the time I painted, and I still painted it. So because it's your mother, she doesn't hold back with these things. Oh, I don't look like that all the time. Exactly. It was like, and so therefore I'm really proud that I pulled this painting off.
It's tough to paint relatives, and especially if it's your mom or your dad, or someone who's close to you. They'll just let you know if they like it or not.
Yeah, they don't give a shit what they're saying to you. They're not being polite.
Yeah, no, they don't care if you're a painter. You just better do a bloody good job of it, or else.
Yeah,
good for
exactly.
you.
So I did also.
This is beautiful.
A drawing. It's from 2008.
Absolutely gorgeous.
This drawing.
Beautiful.
And I think it was done on watercolor paper and just some willow charcoal.
That's really beautiful.
It's oh, who's that?
Yeah.
There was a Canadian living in Vienna at that time, and he commissioned me to do this painting. And I don't know, probably he commissioned me in order to that I could make some money, because I really was very low on money at that time, and this was a way of supporting a starving artist,
Well, I think we just had such a great time that we enjoyed doing this together, And you know, I wanted to see kind of what I look like through your eyes. And there's no better way than having someone paint a portrait of you to figure out how
Yeah.
they see you and what the lighting is. And you were playing a lot with um, some dramatic lighting back then, and you still do
Yeah.
it sometimes, but it was a fun way to experiment. And yeah, we relaxed. And I think, I can't remember, was it the time I also painted a few of you
Yeah. It was the
sometime in
same time.
around
Yeah.
then? Yeah, same time. Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah, we just
And
enjoyed doing that.
yeah, while you talk about the dramatic lighting, it wasn't just an experiment. It was actually the content of the painting,
Mm,
because I don't know if I ever told you that, but to me, it was very interesting because everybody who meets you and talks about you afterwards says almost the same things. Like, oh, Andrew, he's such a nice guy. His voice, it's so soothing. He's such a, he's so positive, and all these positive things. And in that painting, I really wanted to express a little bit of the darker side that I got to know from you. And I think it is to me. I still, when I look at this painting, I see you, and there is a lot of there's a lot of light in you, and there's also some somberness.
mm,
So, and I think that if I would have been only, if I would have stayed only superficial, I would have painted it differently. But this was just this decision was done on purpose, actually.
mhm.
And
Yeah,
to me,
the
also another thing I'd like to add is, to me, the quality of a friendship is that you get to meet all the different sides of a person, and you love that person because of that. That's
and
something.
sometimes in spite of that. Yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
exactly.
it's interesting. Yeah, I guess, you know, if you get close enough to uh, your friends, you will see things that you don't like, or things that may be disturbing, or things that, you know, trouble you. But
Yeah,
the friendship can rise above that, and we've been able to do that for sure.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it was a great time to be together and get to know each other better too. So
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You're right. That's another friend of mine, and he's an art historian. And I thought I took his picture at a certain point, and I really liked how he sort of gets lost in the darkness. And to me, for an art historian, I think it is the perfect rendition of because he is very much more conservative and backward orientated. So he's not a very modern guy. He's refusing to have a smartphone and those things. And so I thought of doing this way. And with this painting, I was really I was trying also, again, like I did with yours. I did the blue kicker light, the rim light, and here I was trying to change up the skin colors, in terms of that I added more greenish colors, more violet, more orangey colors. So that I was changing up the skin color, because at a certain point, as you know, when you do these old masterly approach, like, the what's it called, the Florence Academy, and they always learn to paint with these brown colors and beige colors, and the coolest color they have is the black, and that tends to become a little bit boring in terms of the skin colors. So therefore, I try to push it a little bit.
Yeah, it sort of has a, if I can say, a classical approach, but a modern painting technique. So
Yeah,
this feels like a classical painting, but done in a modern way. And
yeah,
it's very, you know, very contemporary, very much alive, and far more interesting than, in my opinion, than a lot of the atelier stuff that
yeah.
is done.
Mhm. Yeah.
Nice.
I'd like to add something, because Sasha said it in a comment. The painting of yours, there's a video of us doing it, actually.
That's right.
So you
Yeah,
find it
you find
on
it
my
on
YouTube
YouTube.
channel. You can see us drinking. That was the time when Andrew was still drinking, and but also eating burger,
Oh
that
yeah,
stuff.
it's an entire experience. I love
Yeah,
the light on this. This is beautiful.
yeah. And again, it's like I said before, uh, I was pushing the colors, and it's a really, it's the most simplest and the most effective color scheme in terms of that you use cool and warm. This is just orange blue. It's the whole thing. But it is also interesting to how to paint these things, because when you see this photograph on like I did the photograph, and when you see it on the screen, on the computer screen, it's so brilliant and vibrant, and it's really difficult to pull it off in pigments. So
Yeah.
so you really have to push the pigments. You have to tone them down. You have to push the contrasts, because you can't actually paint it the way it looks on a computer screen. And sometimes it looks in real life.
Light behind it on a computer screen, it just really pulses, like it's just really vibrant.
Yeah.
But the original is vibrant too. Of course, when you're looking at it's very different to look at an image with a flat surface, shall we say, where there's no light coming from behind it. It looks different that way. But if it's done well, if the values are correct, then it still works either way. So
yeah, and she's a woman I worked with a couple of times, and she's a musical artist and an actress, and she's wonderful. She's really a great personality, and she's got stunning looks, and so I think it is, to me, first of all, the personal approach is something that keeps me moving, and also like you. I think there's this still life painter, Paul Foxton. He said, when you look at your motive or your reference, your photograph, you always, and that was a good sentence. He said, it should already look like a painting, in terms of that you're kind of keen on painting it. So, some things look already like paintings, and you think, oh, that is gonna make a good painting. Or sometimes you meet a person and you think, oh, this will become a great portrait. So you already know before. So I don't know how to explain it differently, but I think that happens to me quite a few times.
I think that's true. Sometimes you'll turn a corner and suddenly see something, and this is a good example where it's just, wow, that light is absolutely amazing. It glows, and it's such an unusual subject in so many ways, and compositionally too. It's a tough one to pull off, but beautiful feel to this, and again, very limited color in this as well.
Yeah, and again, if you think about it, it's got almost the same color scheme as the painting before, but only more grayed down.
Yeah.
It's orange and blue, and it's and to me, like these displays in the museums I did at that time, I painted. I started in the Naturhistorische Museum and the Museum of Natural History. Then we painted at the crypt, and then afterwards I painted in the Kunsthistorische Museum, and I did it for quite some time, and I was always interested in these strange situations, how they take things out of the world and put it in a museum and set it up very strangely. I don't know, these museum geeks are kind of, they have a certain way of dealing with things, and I found it quite entertaining quite often. Usually they wouldn't stand together next to each other. I don't know, they would lie in a coffin, in a pyramid. But then they just set it up there in order to display it properly, and it looks like a couple.
So they can watch the crowds going by.
Yeah, and interestingly, because they have moved them to the cold north of Vienna, there is a heater right in the front that they don't freeze. Yeah, and if they get tired from standing, they can sit down.
That's great. That's for the person who has to protect them.
Yeah, right.
Just the guard.
It is.
You could probably write a book around the guard in the museums in Vienna. Those and the guys who work in the cafes. But anyway.
Yeah, there's so many, as you might call them, characters. And speaking of characters, it's always, you have certain ways of saying things. It's like, for example, I'd like to add that when Andrew says something about a painting, and he says, "Oh well, this area I'm not so crazy about." It took me many years to understand that he really doesn't like it, but he wouldn't say it like that. And the other thing he said, if somebody's really being a dick, an asshole, or kind of weird, he says, "Oh, he's quite a character." So speaking of character, here we've got one.
Upbringing,
yeah. Exactly. Excuse me. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. And here we have Michael Ornauer. He's a painter, and he used to do copies at that time in the Kunsthistorische Museum. And at that time, I painted in the Kunsthistorische Museum too. So I painted him doing a painting, a copy of a painting. So that was really interesting because if you've got paintings, you have got the room, you've got the figure, and he was moving, he wasn't posing. So I just stuck with one gesture. He was posing there, or he was standing there, and then I painted it. I continued to paint it.
A very challenging painting in every way possible, because you've got a moving figure, and then you have frames, you have the wall behind, you've got lots of straight angles, you have the equipment that he's working with. Just out of curiosity, Stefan, how long did it take you to paint this? Do you remember?
I think it was in one sitting. It was one afternoon.
Wow.
I guess.
That's impressive. Yeah.
I don't know. It's afternoon. It's usually 3-4 hours or something like that. Yeah. My concentration won't last longer.
So the funny thing for me when I look at this painting is that you've created like 3 old masterpieces behind it just because they happen to be there, and then you painted your own masterpiece in the front of those. So it's just it's really fun to look at this. Sometimes the stuff that we do that's incidental to support the narrative is more exciting than the narrative.
Right.
And in this case, I love some of the work that you've done behind. I like the whole painting, but some of the brush work and some of the colors and things you've used behind are just fabulous. And it feels so much like the Kunsthistorisches Museum when you look at this.
Yeah.
It's great.
That's also a story we can share because at that time when I painted this one, no, I didn't. We didn't paint it at the same time because I painted at some other time when I did it. But when we were painting together, you painted her too, and it was a very funny situation because we worked there quite a few times at the Michaelerkirche, and they had a crypt, and this crypt was it was closed at the end of 17th century, 18th, I don't know, around that. It was closed and sealed. And the atmosphere was so stable and there was a little bit of draft that they had the process of natural mummification. And so at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, they opened it again and they had these corpses, and she was dressed, they had the skirting in the coffin, and she had the bonnet she was wearing, and we were allowed to paint down there without any guards. So I went down there with Andrew, and I was bitching around with the light. Oh, I need the light in order to paint. And he said, oh, I don't care. And you set up with the light in your back, and you were casting a shadow on your painting and your palette. And you painted the whole painting almost in the dark. And that was also a good lesson for me in terms of how important values are. Because of your experience, you knew what kind of colors were on your palette, and you sort of, oh, it's supposed to be cool, it's supposed to be a little bit warmer. And this was one of your best paintings you pulled off of her. In terms of all the gray, cool areas were done with a sort of a cool light blue, and it looked stunning. It was really so well executed. And here in my painting,
I jokingly say to my students that my best paintings I've painted in the dark. So I think sometimes
with eyes closed.
Yeah, with my eyes closed. Sometimes I think the problem is when you see too much, we paint too much, and that's a danger. Like you just want to put everything in. And my background as an illustrator, of course, well, we had to render things so that they looked really real. And I, as a painter, well, that's a whole different discussion, but I think it's important to give yourself permission to put yourself into an awkward situation and just do the best you can with it.
Yeah.
And there's always a lesson in these tough things, for sure. It was really
Yeah.
fun painting down there.
Yeah.
It's hard to imagine it would be fun painting in a crypt, but we really did have fun.
Exactly.
If you can have
Yeah,
fun
we
with
had
your friend painting in a crypt with all these dead bodies laying around, then that says something about your friendship. You know, we were laughing away and carrying on, and talking about dead relatives, the
Do you
ones
think it
we
was
could. Yeah,
inappropriate,
yeah.
Andrew, that we're
Well,
having such a good time and laughing so much?
no one down there complained. So they were
Okay.
all fine with it. You know, no one disturbed us. So hopefully we didn't disturb them.
Well, yeah, just in 2019 when I visited Andrew, we painted again at what was the cemetery called in Toronto?
This is the necropolis.
Necropolis.
Yeah,
Necropolis. Yeah.
yeah.
So we have a certain affinity to that, I guess. You know,
Yeah.
like because
We're
we
painting
don't
our
get
future.
disturbed.
We're just
Yeah,
painting our
right.
future. Yeah.
Exactly. There's also again, I have to make some announcement in terms of that. There's also a video of us painting, having a day out painting at the necropolis.
Yeah.
And mostly, but in the crypt, I did mostly the interiors more. And it was really tricky because there was no right angle, and because the ground was uneven, they stood awkwardly. But also, I reduced my palette to earth colors down there. So I try to not to go crazy with colors too much. I have some, like here, I've got some warm colors, but I've got some cool areas here, and I was always changing cold, warm colors, but I was sticking with light ochre, transparent oxide red ochre, black. So those were the colors I used pretty much down there. And you can see it in that painting.
And I think they were fairly accurate to the colors that really were there. It was pretty gray down there. It was just like
Exactly,
this
yeah.
sort of,
everything was gray.
everything was dark and gray and kind of heavy.
Yeah.
And yeah, but it was, and again, like I think there was like 1 or 2 light bulbs that were working.
Exactly, yeah.
It was very limited.
It's like these lamps called you use usually when you work in your car. They have a hook and you can hook it on your
like
those lamps
light,
they use.
those work
lights.
Yes.
These were work lights just installed. It was very primitively done. And Sasha was asking if I fucked up the perspective here, but it's like I said, everything was twisted, and even the coffins were sometimes breaking apart. And this was nothing was in a right angle. It was kind of really tricky.
Yeah,
but it was also, that was really the interesting thing. Speaking of right angles.
I remember seeing this painting. This was in when the first, I'm trying to remember which time I'd gone to Stefan.
It was in my apartment. It was actually right in front of the toilet.
And it was, this painting was hanging on the wall, and I thought it's really beautiful. It's beautifully painted. And it's a subject that not a lot of people take on, but we're very familiar with this subject, of course. So it's just really interesting to see this, this way again. And I still really love this painting. It's all grays. It's all muted. But look at the subject and how difficult it is to paint that well with all that perspective going on. Just that one little bottle, I presume that's like a cleaner or something like that. And, the reflections and the metal, and it's just really a very tough subject to paint well. And the composition's great. Just love it.
Thank you. There's something Annette wrote. It's a typical men's toilet. How do you recognize it? And Isabel just immediately wrote that the lid is open.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's true.
Exactly. But and interestingly, first of all, you say, who's going to buy a toilet? And I think I painted 3 times the toilet, and I think I don't have any of them left. I just sold them. So So it's very funny. We were talking about it the other day, and it's about it. Sometimes the subject matter can be made so attractive because of the way you depict it and the way you put emotion in it, or how you approach it. So that changes everything. It doesn't matter what you paint, as long as you're engaged in it, you're involved in it, and you find your own way of seeing or looking at things, and then expressing it through painting. And that's color, composition, everything that is connected to it. And so we were also talking about this painting the other day, and I added it because it's not a masterpiece, or like Andrew might say, I'm not so crazy about this painting. But this was one of my first plein air paintings I did, and it was hell. Like, I struggled so much, and I think you introduced me to plein air painting, and we painted together so often. And I think in the first year, I've sorted them throughout the years, every year, and the first year was so stressful. Every time I got out there, first of all, I thought I'm never gonna handle that painterly. Second was, I'm running out of time. It was like, you can tell the shapes on the wall, like the shadow shapes, they were gone in half an hour. It's just, it was so difficult, and it was very stressful, and I think it got better, not the next year. It took a lot longer.
Well, putting in the hours that you have with the plein air painting, this is, it's probably one of the toughest subjects to paint, frankly. If you think about the lights changing, and of course, the more you paint outdoors, or the more you anticipate where the light's going to go, and you take a better position, and you stand in the shade, and you learn all of those things as you go. So this was just sheer determination, and I'm going to try and do this. So the effort is the first thing that has to happen. If you don't make the effort, then you never grow, and you never learn. But I can say, to those who are watching, that Stefan's plein air painting went from this to some paintings that were truly breathtaking, like just really very beautifully rendered. The confidence and your ability and the speed, I think it changed the speed of your painting a lot, because you learn to edit things down to the bare essentials, because you don't have time to fuss around. And I think that builds so much confidence in your painting ability, and being able to pull things off quickly. Like sometimes Stefan and I will paint the same model, or a portrait of someone in front of us, and I'm getting my brushes out, and Stefan's almost done. Like he just puts it together so quickly. And I've had to stop him at a few stages to say, don't do any more, because if you do more, it takes away the freshness. So, the progression, I think plein air painting is an amazing thing to do. And if you ever have a chance to go plein air painting with Stefan, or if he has a course, sign up to it. I would in a heartbeat. Absolutely. He's a lot of fun to paint outdoors with.
And it's going to happen, actually. I will have it, but I will have my dates out pretty soon. So I will have some in Upper Austria. I will have a class, and maybe in Munich again. So there will be a few of plein air classes I will do this year, because the plein air classes won't be such a big deal. Despite any, I don't know. We don't know yet. But this is also a painting I did here in Vienna, because it's in the Augarten, and this is one of the flag towers, aka bunker. So, but this is just falling a little bit apart, but they still can't get rid of it because it's so much concrete. And to me, it looks in a strange way, it looks like the tower of a what's it called, like a castle. It's kind of awkward. But it's in a park that the emperor established at the end of the 19th century. So it's awkward because you've got that very neat park, and then you've got this terrible monument standing there. And it's also a small painting. It's 24 by 30 centimeters. So when you think about the figure, it's really tiny.
It's like
really
5
super
brush
tiny.
strokes, that little figure. Very fine.
Yeah, but you can see he likes to eat, and it's really
It's great.
So remember that one?
I sure do.
We went
We
together
painted it
for.
together.
Yeah, it is a really it's a sort of a little, it's a harbor, a port, harbor, port. How do you call it? A port.
Yeah.
Port. It's a agricultural port, because this is a huge building behind it where they keep grain, and so the ships come in order to get loaded with that, and everything was pretty much run down. This structure doesn't exist anymore, because at that time you can already. Yeah, because you can see the color. It's rust. Everything is rust. Yes, Vera, it's the Flakturm. It was the Flakturm. But this one we painted together, and we also had really a good time in terms of that. We went for lunch after we finished the morning painting. Then we went back to do another painting, and
lunch
every
is
time
really important. Lunch is important when you
exactly.
don't want to be a starving artist, at least.
Yeah, but at that time, in the afternoon, I didn't pull off a good painting because I was so stuffed, like couldn't eat anymore. And again, that's another. I think I was very attracted to these flag towers, Flagtürme, because this is the Haus des Meeres. And also, I painted it one summer. I went there quite a few times, and I always picked the same time, and I was lucky to have the same weather at that time. So we continued to paint, and it was really interesting because I was standing on the sidewalk, and it was in front of a hairdresser's place. And after the second or third time, one of the people came out of the hairdresser, and they said, "Do you want a coffee?" And then I had a coffee. She gave me the coffee, and I did the painting. So also going out to paint is always wonderful, because the people come up to you and talk to you, and they really enjoy seeing you paint. And you don't have to worry about how it looks like, because you always paint better than most of the people, unless you are as fortunate as Andrew, when some pro artist comes up to him and looks at his painting and says, "Oh, there are some drawing issues."
Yeah, that happened to me. That really happened to me. Only in Vienna. It's the first time I've ever had a critique from someone, a stranger, who I totally, anyhow, it's a long story. I'll make it short, but I was painting in front of the Kunsthistorisches Museum, and this voice came from behind, and when I turned around, there were like 40 or 50 people standing there. I had no idea they were there. I was so and it was just like this really crazy thing that happened, and I heard this voice, and well, let's put it this way. I think you'll have to watch the interview of me and Stefan interviewing me, and when you do, I think we tell that story then, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. So you go check that one out.
Yeah. So, oh wait, I have to go here. So that was also done during a painting class that I had in Vienna, and it was just, it was very interesting. This was in Nussdorf. You remember Nussdorf? There are lots of Heurigen. So this was on Friday, and this was the last evening. So we did this painting, and afterwards we treated ourselves to some great Heurigen wine, and ein Viertel Weiß, as you might say. And it was at the Danube, and these boats are really cool to paint. You can tell I had a lot of fun. And it's a very small painting. It's 20 by 30 centimeters.
You can see every brushstroke in this is done with you're having fun doing it. You just put it in confidently. A nice light feel, kind of has almost that French Impressionist quality to it. It's very fresh. Very nice.
Thank you. That was also done during a painting class, and we were painting at the Ippenplatz, and that's right in the 16th district, where you've got a market, and you've got it's a center of artists, Austrians, Turkish people, Yugoslavian people. It's just a melting pot, and this is the what's it called? The dump? Oh no, what's it called?
The
It's
dumpster, or
the way you put where they put the waste from the market. So they have a special place, the garbage place, and I really like the colors so much inside, because outside everything was gray, but inside was brilliant, bright, and great colors. And here I also tried to add more colors. Like this is pink, and this is the blue here at the corner of the shadow. I've got pink. I really tried to push the colors more and more. That's also something that I'm very much interested in.
I really
right
like
now.
this composition a lot, because you know, your eye is drawn so much to the center where those warm colors are, but you need those other exterior colors to really accent those warm colors, don't you? And compositionally, it would be easy just to pass that and go out the left-hand side, if you didn't have all that information in the middle. So yeah, it's really,
I guess so. Yeah,
strong composition. Oh yeah. One of my favorite paintings of all time. I just love this painting. We were talking about this the other day, because we were going through Stefan's slides to figure out which ones to keep or put to one side, and this is one that just to me is like a real showstopper, no pun intended, because this chair, anyone who sees this will bring their own story to it. I'm sure, you know, they'll have their own, you know, what is that chair doing there? It's different from all the others, and you know, it stands on its own. But I sort of, when I looked at this, I thought it's like the typical stage presence of some famous actor or singer or whatever, and all the other characters behind in the shadows, making sure that the lights are working, making sure the sound's right, making sure that, you know, the camera's on. And I just love the idea that there's always this, you know, prima donna out front, but it's all of the people behind that don't get the attention that are so necessary. And if you look at the light here against that dark background, the darker background with all the tones and all the subtext, it just really is a showstopper, if I can say that again. It's a beautiful piece. I love it.
Thank you. This is actually a studio landscape. I painted this from a photograph. And again, you know that, Andrew, it's interesting because of so much painting outdoors. You get a sense for color and light, so you can compensate in the photographs, because sometimes the photographs don't work so well because the contrast and the dynamic range is not so great. So, for instance, you've got either the shadows too dull and dark, or the sky is blown out. So you have to decide with the camera. Our eye is much more capable of doing these things. So therefore, on the one hand, the cameras had gotten better. That's one thing. But sometimes you take a picture with your iPhone or your smartphone, and you just, okay, that's a great reference. I use it, but you don't have the color information. And so I try to compensate for that. And sometimes it's we were talking about these things so often. Sometimes the right color is not so important. If you've got a sense for cold, warm, and the values, then you're done.
Yeah.
So I think cold, warm is a very, very important concept, and values is the structure. Besides drawing, besides a good attitude, besides fun, besides humor, whatever.
all of the above.
I'm digressing. Yeah. Okay. So we're heading to the figures and the figures, the nudes, and the intimate distances. this is also done because I did a lot of model shoots, and I have so much reference material. And to me, it is interesting. On one hand, it's the beauty of the woman that really inspires me. And then on the other hand, it is interesting how twisted and fragile sometimes the people are I deal with. And also the way women see themselves. And it's always interesting for me to deal with that. On the one hand, sometimes it's a celebration of their beauty, I guess. And but sometimes it's a gesture, it's a gaze, it's and to me, like we said before, it's you always relate yourself to a human being in terms of, oh, what's her facial expression means to me, and everybody gives a different answer, and that I think is really interesting. Here I think I started the whole painting with what's it called, like these printing rollers. Like I did the whole, in the background, the whole structures are done with the rollers, and it's 40 by 50 centimeters. And also in this painting I changed the colors in the photographs. So I did an edit where I moved away from a naturalistic skin color. So it's called split toning, it's called. So you can add some colors that are not really realistic. So that also changed the whole, first of all, the whole color scheme and the skin colors. That's what I did. And I really like the idea of that Chinese umbrella that creates a form. So in the end, it's always a play between abstraction, a play with composition, a play with form, about sensuality. So it's always intertwined and goes back and forth, I think.
I think you've mentioned something that's important, and that is that if it works abstractly, you know, if the abstraction works well and it's balanced well, then the painting usually holds a lot better. And the fact that you've taken it away from the natural colors brings in a sense of abstraction as well. So it becomes a design as well as a painting.
Yeah.
And I think
exactly.
that there's something architectural about this. The human form against the architectural background gives it a real strength. I think without the fan, it would have been a very different painting altogether.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's great.
Mm-hmm. And it was in, when was it? 2018. I think it was also the year of Chile, and I thought I'd do an homage, like an how do you homage? How would you pronounce
homage? Yeah.
Homage, yeah. An homage on Chile, and because I left a lot of this the color of the paper, so it's not usually how I paint with gouache paint colors, but also the kind of pale
very
skin
Chile-like, you know, and that. I would call it almost a tame Chile in a way, but it's
a tame Chile.
Yeah, so rendered, you know, very beautifully, and the forms, the negative shapes are absolutely fantastic all the way through this. Yeah, that's well done.
Yeah, thank you. And that's another gouache painting I did, and like you said to me, I should put it in the collection, because the interesting thing about that approach is that I do the photographs and I did the body painting. So, but I wasn't intending to use it differently. So I was interestingly, the body paintings are very abstract, and I'm not painting any figures or any details on it. It's just mostly kind of shapes and gradations. And so I work with a body, and I hopefully have a model that is expressive enough. And in addition to that, I use colored lights, and I sculpt with light and color on the body. And finally, I did a couple of paintings where I used the body painting photographs as reference, and this is one of them. And I did this in my gouache stream. There's again another video how this was painted from beginning to start.
I think what I really thought would be interesting for the audience to see is that this is a painting that started it has a history, because it's not just the end result you're looking at. It's a whole process. It starts with making an arrangement to get a model who would, be okay to have a body painting, and then figuring out how to make that work, setting it up in the studio, getting the lighting working, getting the composition working, and then you end up with a beautiful photo, but then taking it to the next stage of turning that into a painting. So there are a lot of iterations, a lot of layers that go into an image like this. And I think when that happens, it adds, a whole other level of subtext and substance. So, and I think, it's not something that you would normally paint, because it's not something you would normally see. Yeah, it's good. It's very creative.
Thank you. And this was one of the first paintings I did for the Intimate Distances, and it was actually, the title came from Sylvia Müllegger, who curated, and at that time, the Galerie Art Mondiale, where we had our first show. There was Alice, Andrew, and me. And the title of the show was called Intimate Distances, because at that time we had we all had nudes in there. We had different kind of, also paintings from the time we painted together. It's like your paintings were done from some of the model poses we did together, and you did these huge paintings, and so I stuck with this title because I really liked it, also as a theme for that whole situation, because it is about intimacy and distance. So it is always that ambivalence between these two things that is in here. Because interestingly, I didn't realize it with this painting, but some person told me, and I saw it afterwards, and it's in there. First of all, you look at the painting, you think, oh, it's so nice. They're entangled. It's such a romantic thing. But when you look at her hand, it's like she's crawling. It's like a claw when you see her finger in his arm, and then it adds a little bit more of a twist to the whole story. If you see it, then it's not. Maybe it isn't so romantic, and maybe it isn't the way you think it might be. And that's something that I'd like to explore in these paintings. Again, it's a drawing, and because I've added a drawing and the final painting you see afterwards, it's I did a whole series, and it's a full sheet watercolor paper, and I painted with charcoal and white pastel. Now I didn't paint; I drew it. I drew it, and this is the oil painting. This oil painting is fairly large. It's 1 meter to 1 meter 50. And
when
again,
when I look at these images, there's sort of a you've taken it past sort of, I would say, like life drawing or life painting, of course, because you have two figures together, but it has a sculptural feel to it, and it's exaggerated in a lot of ways, and it's this intertwining. It's almost like snakes, intertwining. And this movement that happens through the figures, and how interconnected they are, and I think it's just really there's something very beautiful in the human form on its own, but when you have two individuals together, then it suddenly creates a different relationship and a different feeling, and they're very powerful.
Thank you. Another example?
Yeah.
And also, I think the color scheme is pretty important in terms of that you've got a very, on the one hand, you can go crazy. I think it's difficult to see. I made a lot of temperature changes in the skin colors. There's some greenish, there's some violet, there's pinkish, there's green. It's in the reproduction you don't see it that well, but in general, the red is the dominant color. So then it tells a major part of the story, because I think that color is a little bit comparable to music, the melody. And to me, it doesn't matter what what is happening on a painting. The color is the emotion. You see a painting and you see colors, and we react to colors, and that is something that is the first thing we react to, and the first thing we see. And then comes the next layer, if it's realistic, if it's abstract, if it goes in this direction or the other. And so therefore I was trying to, when you look at that one, it's an entirely different mood only because of the color. No?
Yeah. I think a good, for some reason, I don't know why this just sort of triggered memories of some of Frank Frazetta's paintings, whose work I admire so much. And
Yeah.
his use of the human form, which he exaggerates, and the use of his color, that sort of dynamic, centered feeling about a lot of his paintings. I feel that in these as well. Something extremely powerful in that high contrast and the human form with the colors that you've mentioned. It's great. Yeah, they're great.
I think this is the final image. I recently started doing these colored pencil drawings, and I have this technique from an American caricature artist. He's called Tom Fluharty, and if you don't know him, you should look him up. He's brilliant in these things. He does great work. Tom Fluharty. Maybe I write it in the description below, in order to link also to him. And he's working with this indigo Prismacolor pencil, and I really took that from him. And I'm drawing on a it's a printing paper, an absent printing matte printing paper, and that means that I can get rid of certain things that I overdrawn or that I covered. So I can scratch here, for example, I have scratched the highlights out again with a knife or a scalpel. So that's the technique that I'm using, and I'm trying to do these a little bit smaller. They're mostly 20 to 30 by 40 centimeters, and I'm continuing with that subject matter, and I'm right now. It started a little bit more. The whole series started to be more pessimistic, and now I'm playing with it more. I really accept tenderness. I accept all the different emotions that we get as humans. So I try to play with that and try to explore it.
I find this to be, well, it's an image that works on so many different levels. There's the emotion that you see in here, the relationship between these two figures. And there's a modern approach to the drawing. So you can really see, that pencil's working in there, but then there's the classical approach of the etching, that idea of an etching that's in it. And you've filled this full of triangles as well, looking at it compositionally, and our eyes are really led up to, all the way up to her head that's turned away. So we're approaching this image almost like in a voyeuristic way. This is an intimate scene that we normally wouldn't come upon, and it's the man who is submissive in this, the woman who is dominant, and there's so many different ways to look at something like this. I don't want to overanalyze it, but when you see an image that resonates, when you see something that speaks to you, it's always a good idea to ask yourself why. And I think that if you can figure out why, and a lot of people who are watching this are artists, who will be watching this are artists. If something speaks to you, you open a magazine or you look at something on your television or on YouTube or something, and it's speaking to you, ask yourself why. Because if you can figure out why, then you have a chance of getting to it. You have a chance of introducing those ideas into your own work. And I think that that's something to really pay attention to. How are you inspired? What moves you? What brings you to the subject? Why do you want to come into the studio every day? What is it that pushes you? And if you listen to, the messages that you get from the things around you, the scenes and the paintings and drawings of others, And I think that's one of the things that I love about Stefan's work, because when I see his work, it inspires me, it pushes me, and makes me realize, there's no end and no limit to the number of things that you can do. And it's exciting to be an artist, and have this language that so many people can relate to on different levels. It's not like a book in the sense that you read one page and another, and someone lays the whole story out for you. This is something that you come to, and you create your own story around. And I think that that involves the viewer, that involves the person who is looking at it in a whole different way, because you're complimenting them, the viewer, in a sense, by not telling them the whole story. And that's exciting, I think, to be able to have this way of communicating with others. It's like music, sometimes you really feel the sound, and you really you want to you want to be there longer because it sounds beautiful and it makes you feel good, or maybe sad or whatever, but you know that it's something that's speaking to you. So Stefan, I just want to thank you for sharing all these amazing images and your story. I do have one final question for you, and there may be some other questions that come up, but
I don't know. Let's shout it out, because I think we're approaching the end. But if you've got any questions, just write them in the comments, that I can read it, and I'll let Andrew know what the question is.
And I'm going to ask you this one question before we answer others. Where do you see yourself 10 years from now? Where do you see yourself going with your work? Is that something you think about?
Okay, that's a tricky question. First of all, I think right now I'm. Are you talking only about my paintings, or just in general?
Well, I think you can't separate them, because I think you'll always be drawing and painting. And as an artist, maybe I should specify that. So as an artist, where do you see yourself? I mean, personally, all kinds of things can come and go, but art has been a constant in your life. So what would you like to push for? Where do you see yourself going? Or do you see yourself
it's interesting, because maybe I will look at the video in 10 years time, and then I can check if I've achieved it or not. Because I think right now I'm in the process of producing a catalog, and I really like to work more on an international base, first of all. And my painting, right now I've got a few paintings that are fairly big, and I want to paint bigger, larger scale paintings. And it's more about that you can't, that because of the size, they should get a bigger impact in terms of when you're standing in front of them, then you can avoid it. And the other thing is that I was wondering all the time, or not wondering, that really I find quite important, is sometimes I see artists and you feel the intensity of something. It's like, for example, it happened to me when I was looking at, I think only a few years ago, I saw Tom Waits for the first time live on video. And I was blown away because of that intensity. And it is the same thing. I think it is, to me, you can't, I don't know, you can't willingly achieve that intensity. But you really have to throw yourself into that. And sometimes it works, and sometimes it's not happening. But I'm really working on that intensity in terms of that, the size and the brush strokes, and that the subject matter captures me. And I want to show my paintings on an international basis, and I want to gain freedom from the place where I live. So, for instance, that's something that if you would have asked me this 20 years ago, that would have been the same answer. I want to have the opportunity, for example, to go for a couple of months to Canada in order to paint there. Only do my work there, get inspired by other people. And I think Vienna will always
to see you here. Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
I know.
of course, there was just an example. I could go to New York or Italy. It doesn't matter. But I think it is the interesting thing is when you travel somewhere, it kind of, I find it always a little bit awkward because it's so short. You know, I think a real journey or traveling somewhere starts when you are there for 4 weeks. That's totally different. It's like 2 weeks are even too short. But if you can stay at a longer time at a place, and then you adapt to the place, you get to know the place better, you meet the people and those things, and that changes, I think. And so those, I think, are the main things in terms of that, because it's again something that I keep saying to my students quite often. I was working on my technique for many years until I realized that I should have worked on my subject matter in the same intensity, because it is really important that you work on your theme, on your subject matter, the way you work on your technique. And sometimes if something has got a swing and it is groovy or has an intensity, then the technical execution is not that important. If you've got some flaws, nobody cares, because if it resonates with the people because of that intensity, it doesn't matter if something is not so well executed in a technical sense.
I think that's a really important. That's a very important point to make, because there are a lot of people who maybe don't draw or paint very well, but the energy that they have for the subject, or their intensity for the subject, overrides it. It's more important than their ability. Maybe somebody gets on the bicycle and they're racing against their friends and they're competitive, and they're a terrible cyclist, but if they really want it, they push themselves hard and they might get over the finish line first, And again, painting isn't like a competition against anyone else. It's a competition against yourself. It's about pushing yourself in that journey. So do you have some questions up there from?
No, there weren't any. But maybe I have. Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, they're kind of stunned. So I don't know if the chat is working, because from time to time there's one message coming in, but not crazy. So for me, there's another question to the viewers, actually, because Andrew and me, we were talking about making a little bit of a series out of that, because we started. Oh, it's working. Okay, there's someone. Okay, good. So you're still alive. So I'm a little bit worried.
People left the room.
So the question, Elvis has just left the building. Those are his footprints right there. So the question for you at home on the video screens is if you would be interested in us doing a more of a conversational piece, in terms of that we take a subject matter. We were talking about it because sometimes when we chat on a private basis, sometimes we just go overboard. We chat for 2 hours, and we have very interesting subject matters. And sometimes we say that would have been a great conversation to put online, because we discuss, for example, all these themes around painting and how we approach something, our experiences. So therefore, just let us know. Write in the comments when the video is published. Write in the comments and let us know if you would be interested in a series of us doing it, because maybe we would do it on Andrew's YouTube channel, in terms of that we do it in English, obviously. So that would be the thing. So let us know if you're interested. Otherwise, we've got the thumbs up, but no questions. So just you have the word, Andrew. The final words.
Well, I guess I just wanted to thank everyone who has tuned in and who is watching this now. But if there's someone you think might be interested in seeing this afterwards, certainly send them the YouTube link. We're Stefan and I are available to you because Stefan's doing his live streams and so am I. And we're hoping that over time, there's enough interest that there's a community, which Stefan's already built, but a community of artists who can tune in and find some nuggets that might be interesting for them. And maybe they have some things that they want to share with us. And this could turn into interviews with other people. I have no idea where this is going. It's kind of an organic thing, but more and more artists are doing this. And this is a way that we can be in touch with each other. It's a tough business that we're in, and at the same time, it's a business that's full of joy. And when I say business, it's a life that's full of joy. And yes, there is the business side to it. Of course, we need to make a living, but if we can encourage each other, and Stefan and I have had this good rapport with each other. We've been able to help each other and encourage each other over many years now. And I think that it's important to let other people know that there are people just like you and people like us that are out there in the internet world who are making our way day by day and trying to improve our craft and our relationships with each other and the things that we love. So thank you, Stefan, for doing this, because I think there are a lot of people who will watch this and realize, wow, didn't know who Stefan Nuetzel was, and there's a whole world of painters in Europe that people in North America don't have a clue about. I didn't even know who Egon Schiele was, for crying out loud. I didn't know.
Exactly.
I was in the graphics background as well, and illustration background. I didn't know who Egon Schiele was, and barely knew Klimt. So Europe is full of history, and we are influenced by this, and we still are today, even with people like yourself, Stefan. So thank you. This is wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah. So my final words would be just to, because they're obviously just woke up in the stream. It was going on, dong, 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 dong. It was very funny. So we have some overwhelming yes. They would be interesting. So interested. Great. So that's one thing, and maybe you have the chance to rewatch the comments, because they said there's one Dirk Holz. How can I show that? Oh yeah, here. Yeah. Okay, I can show these comments. He's in Canada, Vancouver, and the times are ideal for him.
Perfect.
You should, in order that he can read it, because here, for example, I've got another. Tommy Eckert said she would be interested in more. And I've got this one here from Max Ott. Please keep on talking on the subjects in future streams. And Jerry, he's someone coming over from your streams.
Yeah, I know.
He's
Jerry.
Interested.
So I'm curious. You're doing this on StreamYard. You're able to just hop on these
and here I've got the one for you. Frida loves your glasses.
Yeah, I think I could have sold 1,000 pairs of these over the years. I'm sitting on the tram or on the train or something, and someone sees me do that. The children go, "Oh, that's really weird," and the parents are like, "Oh, I could use a pair of those." So it's kind of fun.
Yeah.
To thank Chris Temple for this.
Also, from my side, I think we're hitting almost. We just achieved 1 hour 58 minutes, and we're almost close to 2 hours. Fabulous. So we were expecting it. The point is, we were talking before that, and we actually
like an hour and a half max.
It might take that long. But Andrew, I'd like to thank you also very, very much, because it was such a pleasant talk, and like always, actually. And we also get the chance to do it without audience. But nevertheless, thank you very much, all of you, for tuning in, and also for those who watch it afterwards. And check out Andrew's YouTube channel. He's streaming also every Friday. And so we continue to do this. And yeah, enjoy. Have a good time. Take care. Stay healthy. And yes, see you soon.
Auf
Bye-bye.
Wiedersehen.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Yeah.